Welcome back again to the Outer Dimensions Podcast, the channel where we discuss anything and everything going on in the movies, at least currently past and semi-present movies, where we discuss action, sci-fi, horror, you name it. And here we are, Dave and Dre. This week, we're going to talk about something a little fun. We had fun with the first installment. We're bringing back the MCU beta. Now, in case you guys aren't familiar with that, that is anything that is pre-Disney MCU.
Yeah, pre-2010. Because
and
Iron Man was technically 2008.
Yeah.
So anything pre-2008.
And frighteningly, the majority of these movies are actually Fox, which is kind of scary. A lot of them have been Fox. So now, this week, we are talking MCU Beta 2.0. Don't worry, there's no Hasselhoff this time around. You guys are safe. Well, for now, anyways. So,
what's up, Colin? What's up, Greedo and a Speedo?
I was just about to pull up our chat. EC Collecting. Wasp. You calling us wasps? Wasp?
I'm not a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Hey, who knows? And yes, Greedo, we know it makes you so big, as he likes to say. Colin, I hope you're doing well. So, yeah, let's, of course, as always, Dre put his nose to the grindstone. He gave us the cheat sheet, another mega cheat sheet.
Yeah, it's a long one.
And by the way, this is 4 movies, so, grab a drink, pour them if you got them.
Figure
get
out
some snacks.
Get the bathroom break, folks, because we
in
it.
Get the onion rings out. It's going to be a long one. Gigi. That's what she said.
I think like I said, I think this cheat sheet was a good cheat sheet. This is a fun one to do. Hey, Rolando, I think rewatching a lot of these movies was, like I told Dave backstage.
I got to get the brainy specs out now.
I think that the only movie I enjoyed was Blade. But I wanted to kind of go a little bit more into something which we'll go to on the second page of this.
Well, I'm going to say this: rewatching the movies and comparing them to their, let's say, modern counterparts. I mean, there's definitely, obviously. I mean, would you choose Charlie Cox over Ben Affleck? Hell yes.
Charlie Cox is great. He
just does a better Matt Murdock, and I mean nothing. Well, everything against Jennifer Garner. She's just not an Electra to me. I'm sorry. She just is
coming back though. We're getting there.
Yeah, in Deadpool 3.
Yes.
Who knows? She probably gets killed. I'm guessing everyone who makes a cameo is most likely getting killed in Deadpool.
Yeah, there's a rumor that like everybody that's coming back.
Deadpool kills the multiverse.
That's kind of the unofficial name of this,
or the Foxverse,
which they're saying he's going to basically go through that. And we're like, again, we don't talk about the modern stuff, but that's kind of like what's interwoven into this a little bit. So take everything with a grain of salt.
Grain of salt, no pepper.
Yeah, no pepper.
Mega Demon collects.
Yeah, T3, 2 different time periods. Of course, brother, you're looking at something from almost 20 years ago. So, of course, it's very different. But let's go to the second page of this, Dave, because I want to
Let's go. And so, these are Marvel Knights, basically.
Yes. So, ironically enough, there was a period in Marvel Comics where Joe Quesada and Jim Palmiotti and several other guys who I got to meet when I was. Yes, folks, we're sliding through dimensions again because I don't know what's going on. Before it was Crowder, now I think it's just Restream doesn't like us. So
Thanos is a little bit ticked off at Dre, so he keeps snapping him, but we keep snapping him back. So don't worry, I'm going to be snapping him back every time.
So I couldn't find covers, but the idea was that Marvel was looking for an edgy kind of darker superheroes that were tied to the supernatural and were what we now know is the street level hero. Now, obviously, there's some exceptions to that because Daredevil and Spider-Man are the 2 street level superheroes we know of. And supposedly Tom Holland, whenever we see Daredevil's new series, Born Again, that when it comes to Disney Plus, he's going to be a street level hero, and that's where Spider-Man kind of talks about that. But Black Panther, we know, is tied to his deep faith in Bast and the
Yes.
herb. Moon Knight is tied to Egyptian lore. We know Blade is tied to vampirism. And Squadron Supreme was Marvel's attempt at doing the Justice League, and I think they did a better job to an extent with the Squadron Supreme. I just am sad that it didn't go really anywhere outside of
Now,
two
who were
two
some of the big
little.
names in Squadron Supreme? I'll be honest, I don't really recall ever hearing of them. So
Hyperion is like Superman.
okay,
They just did that set, the figure set. Marvel is putting all six of them out. So you got Hyperion, who's the leader of the team, and he came with like a guy that has like five different colors. Then there was the Batman character and the Flash. They're the next 2-pack that came out, and then there's another 2-pack coming out.
okay,
Like the six of them are what form what we know as Marvel's Justice League without it being the Justice League. So I just kind of wanted to throw this out there because people heard of Marvel Knights, but they didn't know what it was. It actually went bankrupt after about 2 years because it was at a weird time in comics going into the millennium. So a lot of people were like, it was cool to have darker heroes. Like originally, this group of heroes was built to stop the Punisher.
yeah,
And go figure, now when you look at Marvel Knights and they've come back as the Midnight Suns, which is, Magic, Wolverine, Blade,
yes,
Brother Voodoo, Moon Knight,
Spidey,
Spider-Man. There's so many characters that have joined that. It's a very different
yeah.
but cool thing. So I want to get into the movies. I thought that was just a little bit of a dip in the toe in
Well,
the
yeah,
kind of.
because I mean, they definitely are based on off of the. I mean, it's not just this is only based on this story arc. No, I mean, some of these movies are actually their core storylines are based on Frank Miller.
Yeah, Frank Miller.
Watching the credits of Elektra, I'm like seeing Frank Miller shout out right there. I'm like, oh, okay.
Frank Miller, he actually had a hand in it too, which I thought was kind of cool. Which it made
Yeah.
me sad because you look at 300, and 300 is such a good comic book movie because people think it's a history movie. It's not, folks. It's a comic book movie. Frank Miller did it.
Well, I mean, Sin City.
Sin City, another good. We have to review those, folks. Give us a thumbs up in the chat right now if you guys want us to review that, like as the alternate comic movies that people don't talk about.
But see, when I think Frank Miller, you know what I go to automatically?
I don't know.
Dark
It's
Knight
hard.
Returns.
See, I don't go to that. When I think of Frank Miller, I think of 300. I think of Sin City afterwards, and then I think of like
Is it because this is Sparta?
Yeah, Gerard Butler. That's where I first got my "This is Sparta." And my friends always made fun of me saying I look like Xerxes because I was bald, and they said they wanted me to put.
I mean, maybe if no offense, maybe if you lost a lot of weight, got some freaky jewelry around you,
Yeah, I was emaciated,
gold
with
paint,
and it had some facial piercings. Yeah, I could probably pull off a Xerxes.
I'm sorry, but hey, Vader girl, hey Kat, how you doing? Hope you're feeling good.
So,
because I mean, if we're going to compare 300, then we need to compare the parody of it.
Oh God, yes, the Meet the Spartans. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, if you guys want us to do a review of like Sin City, The Spirit, what was it, 300? Because there are comic book movies that people
don't realize are comic book movies, like Dre's life. Right now, he keeps snapping in and out.
I know, and we're gonna figure that out. So we'll trust me, we will work on that. But there are several of them that are coming that we can love to do.
I mean,
Frank Miller did not do Daredevil. He worked on some storylines, and it was mostly the crossover stuff with Elektra. The big stuff the big writers, like right now, Chip Zdarsky is the best Daredevil writer right now. Donny Cates did a good job too, but he's doing Ghost Rider, which I love. But if you're looking at like that's if you look currently. Frank Miller did a side story for Matt Murdock with Elektra, and then they did a story with the Hand and Elektra, and they did, and that was like in the Defenders. But they've never. I know that Kevin Smith did several stories, and that's why he was penned as a writer, co-producer, and a had a role in the movie Daredevil.
Cameo in Daredevil.
Yeah, so
But
that's
guys, our first one is, like Dre said, his favorite
it's my
of of,
favorite.
of the ones we watched. I had the poster. I
I did not. I had the soundtrack though. I
was
had the
working for
CD.
General Cinema at the time, so I had the posters.
Oh, Dave, just so you know, I'm noticing the chat scroll. We are getting a couple of good thumbs up. So I want to, if we get one more thumb up, Colin's giving us 5.
Well, it depends on where the thumbs are going
Yeah,
up. So,
yeah, they're not brown. No, no, no.
so Blade. I mean, to me, as far as modern, and that's kind of hard to say because this came out. Was it really 2000? No, 1998.
Oh, I
You
forgot to change
got a
it.
typo there.
Here, I made a boo boo. Give me a
Oh,
second.
Dre made a typo.
I made a boo boo. I made a boo boo.
It's okay. It's okay. Well, because this came out in 1998. Okay, the same year as David Hasselhoff's Nick Fury
August
Agent of
21st.
Shield.
Sorry, August 21st is the date.
Yes. So it came out in 1998. I will say this. Um, Even though we had the MCU, we had all the various movies. To me, this is how a comic book movie should be made without trying to be a comic book movie.
True.
I mean, this is right up there, and I'm sure I'm going to get hot. I'm going to get heat from everybody out there. But personally, when Blade came out, to me, that was such a home run. That goes up there with Batman 1987, 1989, Michael Keaton's Batman. Okay, because it wasn't trying to be cheesy. you had like the obligatory villain in Deacon Frost, played by Stephen Dorff, who actually is the brother of Brad, aka Chucky. So, and you think Stephen Dorff, you might think of The Gate, or was it Gate 2? I think. I mean, take a look at who we got in here. Again, this is written by David S. Goyer, who has his hands in so many different comic book stuff
and TV shows.
Yeah.
He is done. He is a huge. When you think of David S. Goyer, you are looking at 100% a guy
Mhm.
who's involved in the realm of comic books and pop culture movies.
Oh,
Just so
definitely.
you know, now Lando, I saw you just popped in. You wanted to know what the thumb up was for. The previously we were just talking about doing a review. If people are interested to do a review for Sin City, The Spirit, 300, other comic book movies that kind of fell through the radar at the times that these were coming out. So we've got. I said if I get one more thumbs up, we will plan it and I'll put it in the works to make it happen soon.
I mean, we got Wesley Snipes, we got Stephen Dorff, Chris Christopherson. I don't think at the time we could have had a better Whistler at the time.
He was the perfect guy. You pulled him out of westerns because that was a lot of what Chris Christopherson had done. He was like a lot of the classic western villain or the hero in like modern western.
Well, I mean, he did do some sci-fi with Millennium and a few other flicks.
That's true.
But yeah, he was a country singer actually. He co-starred opposite Dolly Parton and a whole bunch of others. I think he was he in Convoy?
Yep.
I mean, he's been around, but he does that gruff character perfectly, and I thought he was an amazing whistler. Now, speaking of being whistled away,
I swear
technical difficulties.
it's killing
But
me.
I mean, to me, I was first introduced to Blade from the 1990s Spider-Man cartoon. That was my first official introduction to Blade.
I think that's everybody's introduction to him. Outside of like if you're in, and I hate to say it,
A diehard
our
comic
age,
book.
the comic book, which was the Tales of Dracula, and that was 1976. So that was 2 years before Dave and I were even born. But that was the year that Blade had his first comic book appearance, and then he had a mini series throughout the early '80s, and then he went on hiatus, like he kind of disappeared from comics, came back in the Midnight Suns in the early '90s, and then faded into obscurity again, and then kind of once I want to say like these movies took hold, Blade's comic book presence became more of a thing, and he became an Avenger. Like now, Blade is an Avenger. He's actually on the team. He is currently the head of the Vampire Councils. Like they answer to him because he killed Dracula, and to keep the vampires at peace on Earth 616, they have to answer to Blade.
Kind of like Luke Cage at the end of the Netflix series, let's just say.
Yes, and Luke Cage is actually the mayor of New York right now in the comics.
See, but I mean, like going from the 1990s Spider-Man cartoon, we got like maybe 2 or 3 episodes, I think, with Blade featured total throughout the whole run.
He did the Morbius episode because there was Morbius, the living vampire. He was hunting him.
He was also working with Morbius at one point in the comics or in the cartoon. But like we get Wesley Snipes, who, because of this film, everyone will always, whenever they think of Blade, they're thinking of him. They're not thinking of anyone else. Sadly, they're not thinking of anybody else, even though other people like Sticky Fingers have portrayed him on a one-season Spike TV series.
So terrible. Great concept, though. That's what killed me.
Most of the actors were from Canada, and especially more specifically Vancouver, because a lot of the actors have appeared in different Sci-Fi Channel shows like Stargate Atlantis.
Was also centered out of the studio was centered out of Canada and in California, so several like Impact Wrestling and WWE and ECW all cross paths on there. Spike TV. For those who didn't know that.
Even now, I mean, when I think of Blade, I do think of Wesley Snipes. Okay, he made that character just like Michael Keaton. When Michael Keaton took on Batman, they're like, Mr. Mom? We're like, wait a minute, Passenger 57 is going to be Blade.
Demolition Man.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, it's like we've seen him play some pretty over the top kind of personalities. New Jack City. We've seen him playing on a lot of different stuff. I mean, White Man Can't Jump with him and Woody Harrelson.
Facts. You can't beat that.
So we get him as playing, the Marvel's Dark Knight, let's just say, because he's all black. He's got the souped up, black Charger. He's got the badass weapons.
The acid katana.
One thing that flips the script is you find out right away this is not your typical vampire movie. Because he doesn't have any wooden stakes. There's no crosses. None of that is a thing. Flex. That's all I'm saying. Flex.
He's on my desk. I just looked. He's on my desk. So yeah.
Flex.
That is a flex. OD.
But hey, I was looking at that Marvel Select I showed you this past weekend.
He's one I would get. I like the way he looks.
For 30 bones, that's
it's not a bad figure.
That's a good deal. But I mean, he's got all the pure silver weapons, and like he's also having a little bit of fun when he's taking out the vampires too. We grew up with a lot of vampire movies where the vampire hunter is all business, and he's like, I must do this like it's a holy crusade. Blade does it because he's a daywalker. He has all their abilities without their weaknesses. He can walk in sunlight.
Steven Dorff said, he says, you have all our strengths and none of the weaknesses. Yeah. Blade, I love when Blade was like, nope.
I mean, he's got the armor, so like cops are shooting at him, bounce off. He's got that serum that helps keep his thirst at bay. I mean, he was just a different kind of hero. I mean, this was before Pitch Black that introduced us to Chronicles of Riddick, which we discussed in a previous episode. I mean, this was before any kind of anti-hero on screen. I mean, yeah, we had Punisher in the 80s with Dolph Lundgren, but as far as like a mainstream, heavily promoted because this was New Line Cinema, if I remember correctly.
New Line Cinema and Lionsgate, which is the company that bought New Line out.
Yeah, so I mean, and this was also produced by Wesley Snipes' own production company.
Yes, which a lot of people didn't
Amin
know.
Ra. So I mean, the fact that one, this movie was being made. Two, he was the star of it. Three, his company was producing it. This was his child for the most part. And that was kind of unheard of. I mean, the only thing close to that was maybe Tom Cruise in the Mission Impossible movies. I think that's probably the closest we come across to having someone who's also
Vin Diesel, Fast and Furious, because his studios took over the.
Dre. I said at the time.
Okay, at the time.
At the time. Because this is 1998. Vin Diesel was in Fast and Furious until what, 2000s?
Yeah, early 2000s. That too.
So I mean, yeah,
I keep forgetting that.
Yeah, see, yeah, you hang around long enough, I'll learn you something.
But I'll learn you something though. Remember what I said when I had Steven on the channel on Monday? This was for minorities. This was like, as a minority male that did not have a person a person of color that did not have a superhero. This was our first superhero. Black Panther.
I will say first. What's the word I'm looking for? First, like, I don't mean this sexually. I mean, like, he was a straight guy. He wasn't a funny man, because we have had some very funny black actors play heroes. I mean, you could talk Beverly Hills Cop with Eddie Murphy. You could talk Low Down Dirty Shame with Keenan Ivan Wayans. Blank Man
with another brother from the Wayans family.
Okay,
but
I mean,
I think that if you look at a serious superhero role,
Black
yes. Panther, like what people were looking at the time, it was something Archer. I love what he said because I agree with him 110%. It was like, this was like our first kind of true foray into seeing a black man be the star actor in a major motion picture centered as the hero or anti-hero, however you look at it.
And not just that, but like I said before, it was also his production company.
Yeah, that's a big deal because, again, you didn't have a lot.
And
these guys didn't have
with New Line, because New Line was, part of my language, people, but New Line was the shit back then. I mean, they did the Scream movies. They had like all the best movies. Nightmare on Elm Street was being made through New Line. I mean, there were so many movies being made by New Line. New Line was like the new kid on the block, but they had all the top stuff. Touchstone Pictures was kind of like fading into nothing.
Entertainment.
Even like MGM was kind of fading out. New Line was they're the top dog. And I mean, even the writing in here is strong, and they had a lot of character actors in here too. I can't think of his name, but he played Quinn in this movie. But he's also best known for doing a lot of sitcom comedies, but also he was Bullock in the Gotham series. Can't think of the actor's name, but he was in here. I mean, you had Chris Christopherson, Stephen Dorff. There's a few other like side characters that just are good. Like their voice and pronunciation sound like very Dracula style, more vampiric, like all more European. Like, but I mean, this movie it blew me away when I saw it in the theaters. It was one of those movies that it flips the script on a vampire movie. It flips the script on a comic book movie. Because we haven't had a vampire comic book centric type style movie ever appear, unless you want to count Lost Boys kind of in a loose kind of a way. That's more comic book inspired than Monster based Squad, on
the Goonies. Yeah, we didn't have anything like that. And this was like, and I will say this till I'm blue in the face. I think blue in the face or disappear. Again, for those of you guys listening on the podcast, it is hilarious if you hear me go in and out on the audio. I will say this till I'm dead in the ground. Probably one of the top 5 best comic book movies of all time, because it set a precedent. Like, you look at Batman '89 and Christopher Reeve's Superman. Yeah. Those films were quintessentially masterclasses in trying to do a comic book movie as serious cinema.
I mean, look at Superman. It's Richard Donner.
Mm-hmm.
Richard friggin' Donner. And those that don't know, he not only directs that movie, he actually has a small cameo in Superman as one of the cops that gets killed.
Mhm.
I mean, he's the guy behind the Lethal Weapon movies. I mean, Richard Donner he's made so many freaking films. We could spend an entire episode just naming those movies.
And we
Okay.
could. We should.
I mean, he was an amazing director, a writer, actor. I mean, just all over the place. But Superman definitely is the original Superman. Christopher Reeve is an epic. And I mean, 1989 Batman, I think, is the next one that comes that even equals that in any kind of level.
Oh yeah, and
Okay. And I mean, let's take a look at it. That was what, 70? Was it 79?
79 for Superman.
Okay.
89 for Batman. 98
Okay.
for Blade. So
okay. Do you see that? We have to wait every 10 years for a masterpiece superhero movie, basically.
And Dave and I, didn't we just talk about this? Because then 10 years later, what do you get? Iron Man.
Yeah.
2008,
but I mean, think about this, though. DC, it was DC, though. Because you had Superman, then you had Batman. But then 1998 rolls around, and we get this Blade movie that kind of, they had some marketing, but it blew people away at the box office, in my opinion, anyways. I
no
mean,
choice for this either. You know, every movie back then, also like when they had releases, they always have. Like,
I think because it was maybe a little too dark for people at the time.
I think so too. I think that like but no, then you got Total Recall had toys.
Okay.
RoboCop had toys.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe
Blade
they
never had any toys.
didn't anticipate it because one, it was a rated R movie. I'm pretty sure it was rated R, wasn't it?
It was rated R.
Okay. I mean,
I think it's the cursing and the hyper.
I mean, you had. I mean, there's a lot of blood in here, a lot of blood, and you see like people lit on fire. So I mean, maybe they thought it would be too dark and wouldn't be kid friendly. But I mean, look at us adults. I mean, you know, when we were kids, we loved all this gory stuff, and now.
I was in what, high school? No, I was in college.
Yeah.
I was a freshman. I mean, sophomore in college.
I mean, Blade just. I'm sorry, when I say Blade, I'm always going to see Wesley Snipes, and I think he did a fantastic job in it. Now, in the later movies, he comes off being a little bit more colder. In Blade 2 and Blade Trinity, to me, he comes off slightly more colder, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Because in this movie, we see him smiling when he's taking out the vampires at the first club. You know, when he's got his little boomerang blade that is swinging around and he catches it, he's just standing like it's swinging around in a circle, and he's smiling at that. Or like when he goes to pick up his serum, you know, if there's like an herbal or apothecary he goes to, and he's like, "You're a week early." He's like, "Whistler thinks I'm developing immunity to the serum." You know, he's like, "Well, I made a stronger batch." And we actually see them, like, not only do they shake hands, but they hug and they're like,
he does take care of.
Yeah.
Like, it was a solidarity moment, which I thought was really cool too.
But it was kind of like, this is more humanizing of Blade, but we later on in the other movies, we see Blade become more distance of humanity, more hatred towards humanity. But of course, he starts losing more and more over the course of those films. But this one, it was like, you know, like he even spares a doctor. Partly because he thinks he can use her for, you know, to maybe track or use her as baits. But also, I think it was his human side. Kind of like, you know, I don't want to just kill anyone, you know. And of course, she is like a semi-love interest. Let's be honest. It is what it is.
I didn't get that, like, at all from the movie. Like, I didn't feel like she...
And because he didn't think about that, he got Thanos snapped. No, I'm kidding. There he is.
They didn't like me saying that, but I don't think that there was a love interest. Hey, Millennium Workshop. Hey, Dave. Hey, Dave. Hey, Duff. I don't think there was, like, I felt more of a kinship because Blade knew that he needed to guide her if she was going to make to survive it. It felt more like she's my friend than it is she's my lover. And Blade never... You gotta realize, if you go back to the backstory of who Blade is, he's the son of a prostitute.
Uh-huh.
And Deacon Frost turned his mother while Blade was in the womb.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of why there's, like, I feel like the anime that came out in the mid 2000s did a really good job of kind of giving us more about the relationship between Deacon Frost and Blade
Yeah.
and just vampires as a whole, because I thought it was a great
Well, I mean,
cult.
they could have stretched out Deacon over movies, but they didn't. They just kind of used him as the baddie of the movie. You
Well,
know,
remember, he had he killed the whole presence. What was it that he killed their god in the first
yes,
movie? He kills their creation in the second movie. Then he kills the progenitor in the third
yes,
movie. That was like the trifecta of Blades. They were like, this is what he killed. He killed their god. He kills their creation. Now he kills Dracula, where he can walk in the day
yes.
too, which
Drake.
which I thought was terrible. Like, that's a movie in and of itself as a
I
sequel. I
mean,
hated it.
the actor who plays him is actually I am actually a fan of his
Oh yeah,
because
so
of a lot of his work, but
love.
it was a waste of his talents, to be perfectly
It
honest.
was it was funny how they did tongue in cheek references to making fun of Dracula in that movie,
Yeah,
which I loved. But it was a terrible movie in and of itself. But again, I stand. A lot of people
I
will hate on
digress.
it, and I digress. So, you know, looking at this movie just as a piece of cinema, when you look at, again, and my wife and I were just talking about this earlier today about budgets. When you spend $42 million to make a movie,
Yes.
and you gross triple that, it warranted three sequels. You could see
Yes.
why there was a TV show,
Yeah,
why there
I
was
mean, a
more.
budget of 42, and you broke out over three times the amount. So yeah, I mean that's kind of a no brainer right there. But also, one thing that you and I have not pointed out yet, this movie was all practical effects. Well,
Yes,
I'll say 95% practical effects
until the end where the
because
CGI.
La Magra when with
Yeah,
the vampire, the vampire god, that's all CGI. But for the most part, it is all martial. It's
it's CGI.
real stunt fighting.
Yep,
We get some pyrotechnics. We get real. I mean, it's mostly practical effects. Like the first scene at the club, the underground rave, the vampire rave with the bloodbath, and we get like blood shooting out from the sprinklers, and like everyone, it's not fake. It's everyone's covered in like not real blood, but fake movie blood. I mean, to actually set up those kinds of gags, like they like to refer to them as, I mean, that's a lot. I mean, that was tremendous, but I think that also it had been all CGI. I mean, yeah, when you kill a vampire, they burst into like ash. But I mean, we've seen stuff like that on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and
yeah,
Angel
that was
back in
already
the 90s.
pre-established. Like, Fox had that because,
Yeah,
again, ironically enough, Fox owned Buffy, and
yeah, they did.
that's why we saw a lot of those same practical CGI effects
Yeah,
from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the television show, in Blade and
and
subsequent.
all they did was crank up the special effects just a hair for Blade. So the technology was already around.
Oh yeah, it was. This is something interesting, and just so you guys know, when we do the cheat sheet, like when I work on this, and Dave sees it because I do send it to him to review it. Sorry about the one error that I forgot to fix it because it's August 21st,
Oh,
1998
you're
when the movie was
fired.
released. But the Marv Wolfman and Gene Conlon, those were the Marv Wolfman is the original creator from 1976 that made Blade in the Tales of Dracula comic book series. So I just wanted you guys to kind of get a taste for who created Blade and like know the evolution. And obviously I also added something to this so you could see because people have asked me on social media, well, why do you always just show Rotten Tomatoes? Why don't you show us another one? Well, I went to IMDb because IMDb, as biased as they can be, they're
It was
the
up,
number,
Gilster.
they're the number one aggregator site on the planet for everything.
Indeed.
So I was like, if I'm gonna I have to pin the two, and
And
they're accurate. Like, I feel like Rotten Tomatoes has gotten more accurate over the last 5 years because they're now starting to take fan views versus
yes.
critic views. IMDb doesn't do that. They just go for straight. This is what the critics say. This is what the
Well,
fans say. Collate it, and that's how you
I
get it.
I want to just throw this out there. Speaking of anyone who is critical of how we run the show, or critical, or want to add their critical input to us, they can do that by messaging us at the Outer Dimensions Podcast on Instagram, the Outer Dim Pod on Twitter, and you can also email us directly at the Outer Dimensions Podcast at gmail.com. So if anyone has any input, suggestions, maybe you know of a few aggregator sites that we're not using that you think might be something that would help us out in the long run, please always feel free to drop some tips and tricks. We're always open, because this is not just our podcast. This is your podcast, guys. We're all about sharing and everything. And plus, if you have some suggestions for future episodes, we are always open to that. Again, just reach us out at any of those socials, and we'll take that under advisement. We'll take a look at to see what's doable, what's not. Right now, we are scheduled all the way out to December, but guys, we're not going to stop after December. This is we're year round, guys. So, any suggestions? If you want us to talk about some, gore movies, you want us to talk about maybe some sadistic movies from the 70s or 60s. I mean, anything's open, guys. So
Yeah, we actually Halloween for October. We have I think Dave and I came up with a very good, and I'm keeping it themed because we're talking about Blade. I think we have a very good set of lineups for the month of December. So for our horror fans, if you guys are really into horror movies, you're gonna love the themes we chose. And it took us a while. Dave and I took us
I
a
hope so,
while.
because my brain is Swiss cheese. I can't think of any right now.
We had what was it? We did slashers. We're doing like the king of the slashers. Like
Yes.
we picked like 4 slasher films, and we made it 4 for each one because it was just there's so many. We did like I think, oh god, my notebook was somewhere around close by to grab it. But
He's probably sitting on it.
the slasher movies was like the first one we were going to do for the month of October, and I thought that was kind of cool. And that's another one we Millennium Workshop. That's one that we don't do shows on this channel, but we have talked about doing video games turned into movies. We have talked about that. Now, mind you, barring like something like Super Mario Brothers that was from this year, we are looking at doing more. So, because we were approached by a fan that said, "Hey, I want to see TV shows turn movies, and I want you to compare the two." I said, "Well, we don't compare the TV show, but we can do stuff like the A Team, Baywatch. I forgot what was the
Chips.
other one. Chips.
I mean, yeah, we can do like 21 Jump Street. There's a whole bunch we can do.
Had
But as
several
far as like video games turn movies, I mean, you got Doom.
Doom.
We have a whole series of Resident Evil movies that we can take a look at.
We can actually go to the original Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yes, we could. The cult classic starring Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo, which you all can laugh at me. That is one of my damn favorites.
It is. It's a damn good movie. Double Dragon.
I love the movie. I love the sound.
I'm going to throw that in there. Double Dragon.
What was that? I'll snap you out of here.
I knew you were going to keep me out for that one, but Double Dragon's in there. So.
I mean, yeah, Double Dragon definitely qualifies under there. I mean, there's so many different things. I mean, technically speaking, Terminator was a video game. Predator was a video game.
No, see, those are video games after the fact. I think people want to see us do like Super Mario Brothers was a video game. Double Dragon was a video game.
I'm still waiting for the Battletoads movie, okay?
Oh, dude, we'll be waiting on that one for a hot minute. I'd love to see that. Mortal Kombat.
See, he said he's in Mortal Kombat, and they're like, finish him.
Mortal Kombat, they're like, finish him. Removality. At the end of the day, I mean, Dave and I think we've given this movie a rave review. I mean, a lot of like when you look at people like Roger Ebert, may he rest in peace, and
maybe a little bit.
This movie got 3 out of 4 stars. I mean, it's got a 7.1.
Even when the critics were praising it, we all know critics don't know jack.
Yeah, and when the critics at the time were extremely critical of comic book movies, because Stan Lee himself said the reason why comic book movies were having a struggle to be made was because you didn't have a desire. You had a desire for them, but you didn't have
in a
the critical.
non-kid friendly comic book movie at that, because as far as the kid friendly comic book movies, we had stuff like I mean,
Man.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles
Yep.
back in 1990, and of course the eventual sequels that followed thereafter. We don't talk about part 3, not really. uh I mean, we also had attempts at, like, there were some dark attempts at anti-heroes like Darkman,
Darkman was
but
good.
Liam, the first one with Liam Neeson, and
Oh yeah.
directed by Sam Raimi, of course. And but I mean, none of them really, as aside from Turtles, none of those attempts at comic book style movies, maybe with the exception of The Crow, because that was a comic book
That was
originally.
Vertigo. That was Vertigo.
Yeah,
That was good.
but I mean, aside from those two, I mean, Blade was that was the big one. Like, nobody at first, I think a lot of people really didn't think it was going to do anything, but it blew people out of the water. The
And,
action, everything was on point.
and
There's
it
only
really
one
did open the door.
there's only one thing that kind of annoyed me, like the in the one scene, when they used the I forgot what it was called, but the special fluid that was a coagulant.
Yeah, the
Okay,
police fluid.
it just so happened that the doctor was like, "Oh, well, you can use this, and this will do this," and just turned out to be, "Oh, that's going to be the weapon of the movie for later on when he has to go take on a whole horde of vampires and take down Lamagra." It was like that was like the only thing that was just a little bit too damn convenient. But
Wait,
the
but can
rest
I
of the
make you
film,
laugh? Can I make you laugh with this though? Do you think it was done in the sense of like how the '90s movies, you knew it was a movie, it was a good movie when they said the title of the movie in the movie? Because you
well,
remember, like, that
his
was
name
a
is
trope.
Blade, so they said oh, they said that thing.
Exactly. When we hear like, "Oh, it's Blade," we know that's the turning point for the good guy to get his moment. Like that kind of what I felt was the trope for this movie.
Yeah.
Like, we knew that Lamagra was going to be taken down by a coagulant.
Okay.
Go figure. Something that would coagulate blood would kill a blood god.
Yeah. So yeah, it
But
was like, but a little follow up. That coagulant is mentioned again in Blade 2, and oh god, I'm blanking on his name.
Norman Reedus.
Norman Reedus mentions the coagulant to Blade, like it's the very first time Blade's ever hearing about it. I'm like, really? Come on, dude,
And,
really?
and I like that they did a time loop, like a time lapse, like
Yeah.
where Blade. There was, and again, Guillermo del Toro, which people directed the second movie,
Yes.
and that's why you got Donnie Yen, Norman Reedus, you had Ron Perlman, you had a huge cast of characters in there
Oh
that
yeah,
great,
it's so many awesome people in
and the fact that Guillermo del Toro, his second movie for Blade 2, was the inspiration for the vampires that were in The Strain.
yes,
So for those of you that are huge into like vampire lore and into like Guillermo del Toro, he did that's a lot of people love that.
definitely.
So
So I mean, I think we all can say this is probably one of the best movies that we've reviewed, or the best commercially
it's gonna be
received.
downhill from here, folks.
Oh yes, it's going to be horribly
We're
downhill from
sliding.
here.
We're sliding downhill from here, folks.
So we're going to move on to The Man Without Fear,
I think I put the right date.
and the man with bad hair color too.
Oh yeah, they dyed his hair. It was terrible. This was terrible. Okay.
Even the younger version of Affleck, the kid, he had a bad like hair coloring
Oh yeah,
job. Like,
the kid actor they chose too was terrible.
I was like, oh, you're going to be Daredevil, so your hair has to be like a very dark crimson red. No, no, please no. I mean, I see grannies at the supermarket with better hair coloring than that.
all right. So this one, I don't. I have a very strange love hate relationship with this movie because
Just 5 years after Blade.
5 years after Blade, you're in this Marvel Knights mentality where they're like, we're gonna put darker heroes out, and you get Ben Affleck obviously starring in it. Kevin Smith, he plays a crime scene detective in the morgue that helps Daredevil get some gear. Favreau actually is in this movie, And Favreau plays Foggy, which I thought was hilarious because Affleck and Favreau are not really best life friends. They're in real life, they're not really friends. But like him, Favreau, and
Yeah,
Robert Downey are.
not really chummy. So
So yeah, Colin Farrell plays Bullseye, which was the worst.
I want me a costume too.
Yeah, I hated that. Jennifer Garner, obviously we know who she plays because she
They
she
know.
plays Elektra. Michael Clark Duncan, probably the best pick for a villain for
He was amazing. Like the only word that comes to mind as Kingpin, his portrayal, the appearance, how he delivered it was beautiful.
yes.
Okay, now I'm going to throw. Now this is going to be a little hot take, people. So please aim all your hate to Dave's Dimension at Dave's Dimension 78 to gmail.com or my Instagram. If anyone wants to direct hate, direct it solely at me and not at this channel. But I like him. I like his portrayal. Like, if you ask me who does Kingpin better, Clark Duncan or D'Onofrio,
D'Onofrio.
I'm leaning towards Michael Clark Duncan.
I like. Okay,
because let me explain.
That's what I'm saying. I can explain my view. I want to hear yours.
My view, my imagery, when it comes to Kingpin, is someone who is very strong, very built, very much like Michael Clark Duncan was. Okay. Whereas when we watch Daredevil, the Netflix series Daredevil, and we see Vincent D'Onofrio, he is very savage and he can beat the living crap out of a person, but he's also that timid boy that Wilson Fisk was as a child. He's that timid boy that is worried about certain things. That's a little bit of emo at times, let's be honest. Whereas Michael Clark Duncan, we don't see him as a young child. We just know that he's the one that kills Matt's father. We see him as this strong kind of, just the epitome of Kingpin. Like no flaws, no none of that. I mean, D'Onofrio, personality-wise, he does kind of come across slightly like the animated Kingpin. But for me, I think Michael Clark Duncan does a better job. That's just me personally. That's my personal opinion. I think it's the look of it, the look of Kingpin, and that Kingpin has nothing but confidence and does not accept failure, whereas Vincent D'Onofrio is more emotional. Like, you say the wrong thing, and it's something like you would see like a mobster, like an atypical mobster do, not necessarily a crime overlord or a crime syndicate god would, So that's where I sit with that.
I mean, I can go on and on. I don't disagree with your take on it. I think I like D'Onofrio and the newer stuff because I feel like he fits the mold of what you want a Kingpin to be in now. But again, I digress. I guess to each their own. Michael Clark Duncan did a great job, and I agree with Dave. He was very savage in this movie. What you'd want the Kingpin to be of New York, the guy that runs New York. He's supposed to be a villain. Joe Pantoliano.
And also, people did not bat an eye when you had a black Kingpin.
Yeah, no. See, that's another thing that kills me. Nobody back then said, this is 20 years ago, nobody complained about a person of color being in the role of what was predominantly a white man.
Yeah, because in the comics and the cartoons, you saw Wilson Fisk as this white guy, but now we have Michael Clark Duncan, and I don't think anyone saw color at all. They saw his portrayal. They saw him. And just coincidentally, this is not the first movie that him and Ben Affleck was in together.
Oh no, they were Armageddon. You had
that was a very different portrayal for Clark Duncan in that movie.
Oh yeah,
as Bear.
Now you got Joe Pantoliano. Now a lot of people don't know who he is. If you saw
Joey Pants, Eddie and the Cruisers, La Bamba. I mean, Sopranos. I mean, he's been in so many different things. Most people in the industry know him as Joey Pants.
Mm-hmm.
And he's played comedies. He's played action movies. He's done so much.
he's been the good guy. He's been the bad guy. He's been all
And
over. I
he's
love
done
it.
TV. He's done a crap ton of TV. He's been in movies. And for him, like to get a role like that, I think he saw that there was a casting call for Marvel for like a comic book movie. It was like, come on, I got to do this.
Almost makes me feel like it was
Bad
like
Boys. He was the captain from Bad Boys.
exactly. Made me feel like he was like, what was it, Nick Cage? What is a Marvel movie? I want to be in it.
I mean, he doesn't need that role, but he's like, yeah. I mean, who knows? He was probably a big Daredevil fan too.
Probably. I mean, I was when actually I wasn't a fan of Daredevil at all until I saw this movie, and then I liked the comic book way more than I liked the movie.
Let me say this: I view the soundtrack way better than the movie.
Oh yeah, the soundtrack for this movie.
I have the soundtrack to both this and Electra. Actually, believe it or not, because it was kind of the same kind of rock kind of. This is like when Evanescence was first coming out.
This was
Avenged Sevenfold, and just like it was all that Coheed and Cambria. Like you had a lot of that stuff, so that's kind of the vibe, and it's a very very rock. I mean, like there were some things that were good, like showing like they actually did research on how a blind person would cope with things. Like you see Ben Affleck putting money in his wallet, like he has little Tupperware containers with like 5s and 10s, and he's folding them a certain way so he knows what he's pulling out of his wallet. I mean, that's something that I thought was like, okay, that's interesting that they actually show us some of that, but like the bad contacts for his eyes, the bad hair color, and just like a lot of it was kind of like it was a little too cartoony. Like Bullseye having the target imprint on his forehead.
Bullseye never had that, folks. Not even
no, he didn't.
New figure, the new Marvel Legend we're getting with the female Bullseye, she doesn't even have that. So that's just to give you guys.
You know, she does have. She has a costume too.
Yeah, she has a costume too.
Reason why I'm saying that, people, if you're in case you haven't seen this movie, Colin Farrell plays this hitman named Bullseye, and when he sees the Devil of Hell's Kitchen, which is one of Daredevil's nicknames, he sees Daredevil and he tells Fisk, "I want me a costume too." It's just
he actually got him with his accent, because it was Colin Farrell when he's been in other films.
No, he poured on his Irish accent.
Oh, yeah, he poured it on.
He's natural born Ireland native. Okay. But he, like in this movie, most movies, he does a very great, very flawless American accent. Okay. The movie SWAT with Sam Jackson and so many others, cult favorite of mine.
Yeah,
but in this movie, like he kind of pours on his Irish accent a little too much, but I think that's more the producers and directors like, could you just kind of like overly do it?
Yeah,
and he kind of does it.
There's the cup. Pour it. It's full to the rim. It's starting to spill a little bit. Keep going.
His cup runneth over.
Now, obviously, the budget for this movie was $78 million. Again, I did now. Here's the thing, you guys. A lot of people ask me when I look at the money for these movies, what do I use as a calculator? I don't. Any movie that's from post 95 to current, the calculations don't make a difference because the money there was so many factors that the money's about the same. It's literally cents that makes the difference. But when I go from the 80s or the 70s, that's where you start noticing the money shift is dramatic. And you'll see that when we have upcoming cheat sheets, how highest grossing films from like 1970s, 1960s, 1980s are radically different, where they're billions. It becomes like billions of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, just think about this. Blade was $42 million to make. This movie was $78 million, almost double. Almost double there, guys. We lost complete connection with Dre's. He will be back momentarily. But I mean, it did make its money back. It did make $179.2 million. So it made over twice its original budget. But it wasn't received all that well. I mean, you compare this to like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man to Tom Holland now. I mean, it's apples and oranges for the most part. But I mean, it had a runtime of 1 hour and 3 minutes. And of course, you know, as far as the casting for Jennifer Garner, I'm pretty sure that probably had something to do because I think these Ben Affleck and her were like an item at the time, or they met while filming. Okay, pardon me for just a second, guys. Dre was messaging me just now. He's having there's some kind of computer connection issues that we're having sustaining him here, so I do apologize. Just message him. He's going to attempt to see if he can get back in with us any second now. There he is. There he is.
Hey, I just sent them a message too, just to let you know. I'm trying to get back to my train of thought. So, looking at these budgets, when I look at the numbers, I try to give you guys as close to accurate numbers as possible. So 2003 wasn't a big. We a couple years later we'd have a recession in 2005, and then we had the housing crash in 2008. That would have affected numbers then. So, and even still with Hollywood, it really didn't affect much when I looked at the numbers crunching it. So 179.2 million dollars. This movie again by 50 million gets you a sequel, gets you your money back in many people's eyes. This movie made its money back and enough to warrant a sequel. Now, obviously, we'll discuss the sequel because I think the sequel was far worse of a movie than this.
I'll say no. I'll say we should justify it with a spin-off and not a sequel.
Yes, I would say this is a spin-off movie, not a sequel. It is funny that IMDb rated this movie so highly, and when I dug through kind of the numbers, it's mostly because of what it brought home on the box office. So a lot of people look at movies now and will say like, "Oh, if Pixar movie like Elemental was a $200 million movie to make, but it only warranted $100 million because of the worldwide box office," people still say it's a success. Well, no, it's not a success. Financially, it's a flop because to warrant it, you need to do like Star Wars. Like when episode 7, 8, 9 came out, you had multi billions. It Avengers blew those numbers out the water. Spider-Man blew those numbers out the water.
I think part of it is like back then DVD sales were big.
Yes, that's another thing too. I couldn't factor in because I looked up to try to find numbers. Again, you guys know I'm a statistician in a little bit because I like to know. And it did come out at the time of Lord of the
Yes,
Rings.
it
So that's another thing. The studio could have taken a hit on this movie, but then it gets the success of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So, which were fantastic, by the way. So that's where this lies. Now, obviously, again, IMDb rates it 5.3 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes 43%. It was not what a lot of what I read, I agreed with. It's a lot. They were trying to jam pack an origin story into 2 hours, and it just didn't work. The
Well,
action sequences were kind of a mix of Adam West Batman and bad martial arts.
well,
Can you blame the actor, or do you blame?
or do you blame Dre for dropping out like he just did? Here he is.
Yeah,
Well,
we're gonna have to talk about restream.
well,
We
I
might
mean,
have
I
to
mean,
move.
I
Might have
mean,
to go home.
it's part of it is the way I look at it is this. I look at the issues of writing, directing, and producing. Do I blame the actors? No, because they're just reading off the script. They're going by the storyboards. They're being told what to do. You know, your supervisor says, "Hey, I want you to do it this way." You're thinking to yourself, well, I really don't think this is the right way, but your supervisor has final say. You know? But looking at 2003, it was not a great year, guys. We had Terminator 3. We had Freddy versus Jason. We had X2. So, I mean, we already had a lot of comic book or sci-fi oriented. Underworld, of course, Daredevil, which
Way
we're talking
better
about.
franchise.
And don't hate me for this. Leprechaun 2, Back in the Hood, Dreamcatcher, Hulk, the Ang Lee Hulk, Hunted, Once Upon a Time in Mexico. I'm probably saying this, I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly. Ong Bak,
Ombak, yeah, that was great.
Too Fast, Too Furious, Bulletproof Monk.
Great movie.
Okay. I mean, there was a lot of fun movies. We had a remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre that came out that year.
Which is one of the best ones ever made.
Wrong Turn, Final Destination 2. I mean, even like the comedies, you had like My Boss's Daughter and, you know, some of the little teeny bopper romancers. Gothica with Halle Berry.
That was a good movie
Identity.
too.
Willard. Freaky Crispin Glover with Talking to the Rats.
Yep.
You know, and we had Timeline, another Paul Walker film. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen with Sean Connery.
Fantastic movie.
The Rundown.
Great movie.
Tomb Raider, The Cradle of Life. I believe that was a sequel.
That was the sequel, and it was terrible. My mom saw that.
Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, of course, and Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. I mean, there's lots. I mean, we had House of a Thousand Corpses,
Great
House of the
film.
Dead, Dracula 2. Going through a whole list here. Beyond Reanimator, if you're a horror fan, right there.
A classic horror, man.
Bad Santa. Old
Which
School.
one?
My Boy
Old-
Blue.
You're my boy, Blue.
Holes. Haunted Mansion, the one with Eddie Murphy. Yeah, guys, that was 20 years ago. Feel
And
old
we had a
yet?
remake of that one too.
Bruce Almighty. I mean,
Great film.
Daddy Daycare. I mean, they had like The Core, Matrix Reloaded, Paycheck, Deep Shock. I mean, so many. Oh, here, Last Samurai, Tears of the Sun, Master and Commander, Helen of Troy, Saints and Soldiers. I mean, we can go down a whole list here. Hoodlum. It was Hoodlum and Son. I think SWAT. Actually, yeah, SWAT came out the same year.
And SWAT did way better.
Out of Time with Denzel Washington.
Another great movie.
I mean, there's so many. Yeah, I mean, you had a lot of good movies, some not so good. But I mean, come on, look at that year. Were the chips stacked against it? Yes, but we had much better quality films too.
And Dave and I've done this before. We look at a movie that it came out in a year that things were hot, like Independence Day 2 came out in a year where movies were hot. So that movie it had a lot of expectations to hold up to, but at the same time, did you really care if that was a flop when you had like
Charlie's Angels?
Yeah,
Full Throttle.
You know, but you understand what I'm saying? There's so many other, like, I think that, and I noticed that Matt Pat, big shout out to Matt Pat and Film Theory. I love you on YouTube, Matt Pat. If you ever watch us, bring me and Dave on. We'd love to work with you.
Gil, sir, that personally, a lot of people kind of like threw their noses at that movie, but Artificial Intelligence, I love it.
It's a great movie, and it was actually
a great, fun movie all the way through. Is visually stunning. I mean, it's definitely. I want to say it's akin to Dre. Don't hate me for this. Alita.
No, it's not. It was Alita was good. I think James Cameron.
I mean, like as far as the visual, like
visuals,
like seeing the droids, the androids, you know, and seeing how they were like swapping parts and stuff. That definitely had. I definitely think Cameron was slightly influenced with that. At least a little bit.
I would say so. I'd like to believe it, but
I mean, decades apart, but still.
But so let's just go on to Elektra, because I feel like we could take these two movies and sandwich them together without having to go too into it. Now,
yeah. I mean, well, long story short, let's just button it up for them. Daredevil. Long story short, he's a kid whose father is who's a not so well prize fighter. There's an accident where the son is blinded, but when he's blinded by these toxic chemicals, which it almost has like the Spider-Man bite reaction where this energy is surging through his nerves. Even though he's blind, he has basically sonar. When there's a vibration or any kind of sound, he can see everything that's going around him. So it kind of fine tunes his reflexes and his other senses. That's why he's the man without fear. That's why he's able to do backflips and all kinds of crazy stuff. Even though he's blind as a bat, he can also hear whether someone's heartbeat is whether their heartbeat's slow or not, so they could tell whether someone's lying. He meets a girl who happens to be the daughter of a big crime lord who has dealings with the kingpin Wilson Fisk. Long story short, her father's killed. She thinks that it's really Daredevil who did it. There's a whole thing, and by the end of the movie, we think Elektra's dead, even though we find out she's really not. And Fisk takes down. Fisk is taken down by Daredevil. He's not killed. He's put in prison. But Matt doesn't think that who are they going to believe a criminal underlord who's now caught and in prison, that a blind guy is a superhero? Who's going to believe that?
Yeah, that's a good way. I think you buttoned it up very nicely. So let's move to Elektra, and we're going to cover Elektra. And Elektra
Who wouldn't want to move to Elektra?
I really don't want to, but so now this movie, as the level of success that you saw out of Daredevil, Elektra, people were like 2 years later. Garner has now started doing Alias, because the year after Daredevil, she started doing Alias on TV, which was an ABC show where she's a spy, and Alias.
That was J.J. Abrams, I believe.
That was J.J. Abrams, which again, good show. Bad idea.
Based on a comic book, if I'm correct.
I think loosely.
The name Alias was used for a lot of different properties out there.
It was used inside of the
Jessica?
Jessica Jones. So this movie, again, Frank Miller wrote and created the character, which is one of the saving graces for this. Now, let's go through obviously the actors in this movie, because I feel like
amazing actors.
You have to look at Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa. Shang Tsung.
Your soul is mine.
Your soul is mine. Walker. The Walker, as in Walker, Texas Ranger.
He was on Nash Bridges. He was a staple in a lot of different sci-fi, on a lot of action shows. I mean, he has appeared in so many different things. The Mortal Kombat franchise, both in video game and the movies. Yep. But he also he was in Rising Sun with Wesley Snipes and Sean Connery.
Great movie.
I think he also has an appearance, I could be wrong, in Showdown in Little Tokyo, Dolph Lundgren and Brandon Lee.
Yes,
he's just all over the place, and he's still acting now. He's got that look, and he's got that voice.
He talks like very wise Japanese man. Very, very wise.
But it's like if you had someone who had like a very wise, like what Dre was describing, like a very wise Eastern accent, but also the badassness of Clint Eastwood in his prime. I think
Ken Watanabe. If you have to pick a guy that's
yes,
Tagawa now,
like a successor to him, yeah, definitely.
Ken Watanabe is that guy right now.
Now, some people may not recognize the name Goran Vishnik. You might know him if you watched ER back in the 90s. Yes. Okay, that was like his claim to fame. Like he did that, and because of that, he was getting a few roles here or there, but that's about it. Like, I think after this, he kind of just vanished into obscurity for the most part, unless you watch the show Timeless on NBC, which is from the same creators of Supernatural.
Yes.
And The Boys.
Yes.
So, and actually, he was in season 1 of The Boys. So, I mean, he really hasn't done a whole lot of acting.
But again, now you have Will Yoon Lee. Yoon Lee is, good Lord, what hasn't he been in?
He was in The Wolverine.
He was in The Wolverine.
Yeah, he's played in so many different stuff.
He's been in so many action films, television shows. He is so wildly popular that to me, I was like, that's a guy you already know. Like, we didn't even have to cover him. But the great Terrence Stamp
If you guys
Terrence,
don't know, Terrence Stamp, the only man to play both Jor-El and General Zod
yep,
in Superman mythology. He was the original General Zod in Superman 1 and 2, because there's a little bit scene in the beginning of the first film. But years later, was it 2001? No,
Smallville.
maybe well, yeah, it was around 2001 Smallville premiered. He was the disembodied voice of Jor-El,
Yep.
Clark Kent's biological father, in kind of like an AI kind of essence that just manifested in, like, there was no science to it. But anytime Jor-El, for 95% of the time Jor-El spoke, it was in the voice of Terrence Stump.
And I
And
thought
he's
that
just
that was
that
and he plays
presence.
Stick. Just so you guys,
Yes.
now Stick's blind too. He's military trained, blind, knows how to fight. That we see him in Defenders, and we see the same actor who I love, the guy that was in
Oh, yes.
Netflix show, because he is a tremendously good actor. His name escapes me right now, but I see Dave looking it up, so that's why I'm not worried about it. Um,
Don't worry, I'm looking it up right now.
he is he like the two of them were just fantastic, and they do such a great job in playing the roles that they were due. Now, obviously, this film picks up where
Scott
Elektra.
Glenn was his name.
What was his name?
Scott Glenn.
Scott Glenn. Yes.
The Right Stuff. I mean, he's been in he's been in movies since like the 70s. I mean, you've seen him in like background characters and whatnot. But to me, don't hate me. I mean, I love Terrence Stamp, but Scott Glenn. I mean,
I think he did a better job as Stick.
he's a better Stick,
Yeah, but again,
because
you gave him time to flesh it out though, because
yes,
he had seasons of Daredevil and Elektra.
yeah,
Well, not
he
Elektra.
appeared in
Of
season
Iron.
1 of Daredevil.
Yeah, he appeared in season 1, and then he was in the Defenders TV show.
Yes, I
Because
mean, he's that soldier that will, like, it's kind of like if you ever see in a movie where there's like there's the leader, but then that leader will do whatever he needs to do, even if it means, inspiring someone to do something that's most likely going to get them killed, so that he doesn't have to get killed, because it furthers the movement. That's kind of like how he is. But I mean, in this movie, Terrence Stamp kind of plays. He kind of plays Stick more like Yoda and Obi-Wan rolled into one.
yes, and I
You know,
didn't like that. I
because
felt like
he's hustling Pool 1 minute, and then like he's tricking Elektra into being hired to kill a girl, but then obviously she turns around and has to protect the girl and the father, and then later she finds out, wait a minute, this girl has skills and her father has skills, because he throws a knife perfectly into like somebody's head or something. I'm like, it's like, oh, suddenly everyone's got abilities. You have very like
it hovered that weird realm of like supernatural mysticism, martial arts with like comic bookness, and then like trying it did too. It dipped
I'll
its hand in too many pots.
I'll say this: the bad guys in this movie, that the henchmen, if you will, if you want to call them that, the one with all the special powers, it seemed like they were just slightly better looking versions of the hench people from the second Ghost Rider movie.
Okay, now one of those characters is Typhoid Mary, which
Yeah.
is an actual comic book villain.
Oh yes,
In
and there's a different version of her in the Wolverine.
and there's a different version of that Typhoid Mary we see actually show up in guess where? Daredevil season 3.
Exactly.
So it's for those of you that are like trying to understand like this series, like they did better in the television series than they did in this movie. Now, obviously,
Which is kind of weird if you think about it.
yeah, because you figure the movies you have a shorter amount of time to make something bit better, and it did not. This movie was terrible. I told Dave I've watched it because it's our homework, but Lord help me when I watched it, I was so mad. It was so
Guys, it wasn't terrible, it's terrible. It was a terrible.
it was just terrible, terrible, terrible. And it didn't even make its money back. Like, so you have $65 million to pay all this stuff, get the sets and everything, and it only made $57 million. People were like, "Oh, but it's so good." IMDb, again, based on DVD sales, not Blu-ray, DVD sales, 4.7 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes, I think, hit it right on the head, 11%. And a lot of what the critics said this was wrong with this film was it's sad that they felt that this set the female lead actress role for a superhero film back. And when you think about it, when was the next time we saw a female led cast for a superhero movie? Black Widow. And it's almost 16 years.
What about barbed wire?
I was thinking about that movie too. That's another one we got to do. But 16 years, it was 2021. Pandemic era, people. And that movie went right to streaming. We didn't even get it in the theaters. So, or we did get, no, we did get Widow in theaters. I saw it in theaters, but it came to streaming like the same
I
time.
waited for streaming. I'm sorry. I waited until it was on Disney.
Oh, no, I saw it in the theaters because Lana, it was like one of those times that me and Lana did not want to stay home because of the pandemic. So we saw it in the theater. Now,
Okay, so I have to throw this tidbit out there. Okay.
go ahead.
So Elektra came out in 2005.
Yes.
She now Jennifer Garner continued to make Alias, and then she wouldn't make another movie until 2006,
Yep.
which was Catch and Release, which was like a rom-com. So she never really re-entered any kind of action stuff. She was in Ghosts of Girlfriends Past, like
13 going on 30.
she was basically kind of like she kind of kicked her like after making that movie, she never really returned to.
Well, she also broke up with Ben Affleck.
Yeah, and then they got back together, and then
They got back together and they broke up again. And it's like, and you gotta look at it like, who's the bigger comic book fan in that relationship?
Yeah, she went back to her strength, which I guess was like rom-coms for the most part.
And he went to his strength, which was staying in the realm of action drama, because he did The Accountant, he did Batman, he's done Suicide Squad. I hate that she tried to do that voice too, like where she's like, "Get out," when she talks to that little girl.
Yeah,
she tries to get like that gravelly, like, "How did you do that?"
And well, how about those really bad green contact lenses she rocked?
Oh God, yeah, when she was trying to do the time thing, the time dilation ability.
No. She wore bad green contacts in Daredevil and also in this one. It's like, and
well, she's also not Greek, and I think was Elektra Nachios is a Greek woman, and they actually hired a Filipino Greek.
Nachos, yeah, Elektra Nachos, not not jalapenos,
like to eat,
not jalapenos, not quesadillas, but yeah, I mean,
my wife just laughed.
I don't care if she left. She better laugh. No, I'm kidding. But I mean, it's sad because Elektra, the movie itself, like the fight scene with her when they got like the sheets blowing and like there's like drapes and stuff.
CG. It was.
I mean, it was just terrible. And the big bad fight scene of hers was like something that you would see like it seems like something that would be like in the middle of the movie with a bunch of henchmen.
Yeah, not like
it was not
fight scene.
Yeah, it was nowhere near the pinnacle scene in Daredevil with Ben Affleck versus Michael Clark Duncan when they're fighting, and like you see Daredevil blow his knees out.
Oh yeah,
blow Kingpin's knees out. Like you see him fighting with a vengeance. We didn't have any of that. There was no, at least with Ben Affleck, like when he's fighting, you can see like he's trying to push rage through. Jennifer Garner, not so much.
No, and actually, I want to address something. Gil, you said it best. You said, "What about Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2?" That's not
great movies.
Great movie, but they're not comic book movies. And several people,
they might be inspired.
They're more see. Kill Bill is inspired by Chopsaki cinema in the 70s, 60s, Shaw Brothers, versus where you have comic book Elektra based on Frank Miller's work. Now, do I agree Uma Thurman killed it in those roles? Hell yes, she did.
She could still kill it. Rumor has it that Quentin Tarantino would still love to do part 3 and 4.
One, yeah, they wanted. It's called Daughter of the Bride. That's the working. Right now, the working rumor has been for like the last 10 years.
So that would be Bunny.
Would be his last movie that he would do. It'd be like the Daughter of the Bride, where it's the Vivica Fox's daughter versus Uma Thurman's daughter.
Well, then it wouldn't. Okay, so yeah,
it would be one of the 5 taking on Uma Thurman's daughter because like we know in Kill Bill 2, Carradine's dead, and he's dead in real life anyway.
Yeah.
But like she's the daughter of the master, and Uma Thurman actually has said that she would love to do the movie. There's a lot of people that want to
I
see it
mean,
done.
there's a lot that can happen. You could even have the kids of all the people, because who's to say Daryl Hannah's character didn't have a child?
Oh, she did.
Yeah.
There's lore. There's lots of lore into, like, I've delved into it a little bit of it. I like that Tarantino creates these full on universes for his.
I'll be honest. I don't think Tarantino's ever made a bad film. I
Uh,
mean, I love Jackie Brown.
Jackie Brown was great.
I mean, I love. I mean,
I mean,
just can we even think of a bad movie that he's done?
Reservoir Dogs is good. Yeah, I can't really think of a bad movie he's done.
See,
I
that's what
really
I'm
can't.
saying. I mean, it was Inglorious Bastards.
That was a great film, and a lot of people
It's a
hated it
fantastic
because,
film.
I mean, he made careers off of that. So Eli Roth can thank him for a lot for that.
No, who directed Four Rooms? Was that Tarantino, or was that
No,
him
that
and
was
Robert Rodriguez? Or
Robert Rodriguez.
okay, that's a great film though.
So that Gilster, I wasn't ignoring you. I wanted you to know that when I look at Kill Bill, I look at that in a very different light than comic book movies. Like
Yeah,
like I look at Kill Bill more like, you know, I'm trying to think how I would look at it. I look at Kill Bill more like a martial arts action film
it's.
than I
I would
do.
say it's like an homage to
It's
those
an homage movie.
to like the old style kung fu like revenge movies.
Yeah, like Pai Mei, the actor that plays Pai Mei is, you know, in Kill Bill is actually a famous Chinese
Yeah,
Shaw
he
Brothers
freaking
actor,
just kills it, man.
and he does such a great job with those eyebrows and the Fu Manchu. I love
And
it.
what was it? The Crazy 88s with the X Club.
Yep.
The
I mean, Gogo Yabari. I mean, that was Puppy Amiyumi. That was all like idol singers. I mean, it was done really well. So again, that's something that
Yep.
people. I would love to. Maybe if we want to get some thumbs up,
I'm
maybe
sure
that.
there was a comic book made about the
Oh, it was
movie, or
anime.
no, I'm saying like merchandising afterwards, like
Oh, totally.
like even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, they made a comic book adaptation of it. So yeah,
Well, okay. So I'm gonna clarify what I was saying. The critics said that as a female led comic book movie, not a female led action movie.
yes,
If I said that, I stand corrected. But I wanted to make that clear that Jennifer Garner set back any actress, and it's true because you don't see that till 2021, 2022, Wakanda Forever.
yeah.
I mean, you haven't seen a female led. Well, you could say Underworld, but
Well,
Underworld already had existed
that's going to be
before that.
action. That's not going to be comic book based. So
Exactly. So we're looking at comic book based action, comic book based movies that
because Catwoman was not a good movie. I'm sorry. I love
which one?
Hallie, but that was not a good movie.
Which one?
Catwoman?
Catwoman was terrible.
That's what I'm saying.
So I hope I clarified that and it makes a little bit more sense. Again, these two movies, like I said, we're sliding downhill. I started you guys on a high. I'm going to end on a low. I guess that's the best way to do this. So
Low,
let's end on
low,
a real
low,
on a
low, low,
medium low.
low.
On a medium low.
Great actor, not so great movie.
Now, and again, Frank Miller. For those of you that were questioning earlier, because I know like T3 had made a comment, like Frank Miller had his hands in the Punisher. He did briefly. You have to. Frank Miller had a hand in everything that was Marvel Knights except for Blade, Black Panther, and I want to say and Squadron Supreme. He had his hands. He did a crossover where he worked on Moon Knight, Daredevil, Wolverine, Punisher. Frank Miller has had his hands in all four of those books, and Elektra, so five. So if you guys wanted to know, I do have a good comic book level of knowledge, and I've read those books growing up. So that's why I know that for a fact. Now this movie, man, for looking at a movie 15 years old, Ray Stevenson, may he rest in peace, a fantastic actor. Only got this
Yep.
movie's role because of what he was in on HBO. And for those of you that did not know, he was the lead actor in Rome, which was an action bio series on HBO, where he played one of the chief centurions. And he was like well built. They went for the darkest take on Punisher you can get, which is
Definitely.
I feel like if you want to look at Bernthal's Punisher, this is where they modeled him after. Now, for those of you that don't know a little backstory, Warzone Punisher is a spin-off comic book series of the Punisher War Journal. There is Punisher, Punisher Warzone, Punisher War Journal. War Journal is like the older stories of a mix of like Frank's time in the military with Frank's time as a superhero.
And then Punisher War World. No, that's coming this fall.
And Warzone was more like his active role in taking down crime families and crime syndicates. So for those of you that are curious, that's what that is. Now, I could go into the other actors, but to be real, the only other actor of note that you can really pull out of this, and it wasn't actress, was Julie Benz. Julie Benz. Yeah, Dennis Nedry. We could go into Dennis Nedry because we all know he's in here. And Seinfeld.
Don't you mean Wayne Knight? That's his name.
I know Wayne Knight. I call him Dennis Nedry because I love him. That's his
Newman
role.
from Seinfeld.
Newman.
But he's actually pretty likable in this movie.
He did a great job in this movie. But Julie Benz is the other one that everybody knows because
he's
Buffy fame.
Yeah, but honestly, she's kind of hard to like kind of recognize a little bit because she's mostly known for being blonde. Yes. And she wears like this dark wig and she's got like kind of a little bit of an accent, almost a little bit. I mean, she by this point in time, I mean, she'd already done Boondock Saints 2. She was already on Dexter. She was already on Angel and Buffy. So her career is kind of sliding down by this point because this is one of those movies that you could easily just watch. I mean, if it was back in the day, you would have picked this up at the movie store or you're just watching it on Netflix. This is not necessarily a movie you would spend money on. And I don't really recall a whole lot of promotion for this either when it came out.
A lot of promotion. Now, Gilster, I'm going to tell you, you're not... would I tell you not to watch this? No. Would I tell you to watch it once? Yes. Because I think it's good for the one watch. And we, of course, torture ourselves, Dave and I, because we love you guys. And sometimes watching a bad movie just lets you appreciate the good ones that you're going to watch later.
I mean, what makes this movie bad is, again, let's just compare it. Let's just put it in a box along with Daredevil and Elektra. CGI on here is really bad, and this is a 2008 film. Like, it's like one of those movies where, like, okay, if you ever watch like the Sci-Fi Channel Asylum style Asylum made zombie movies where you don't see bullets but you see blood splatter, that's kind of what we're seeing here. You don't see like no practical effects. Like the blood, like there are no practical effects. They cheaped out as much as they possibly could. They probably spent most of the money just on the names of the people.
And Ray Stevenson would have been a big name. So, and Wayne Knight in Seinfeld, that's a big name too. So,
and honestly, Ray Stevenson is an amazing. I mean, his Punisher feels like it's two people. It's kind of like Clark Kent and Superman. That's the way I feel about this, and I'll explain what I mean. Like he's just basically this Punisher. Long story short, he's taken down some mobsters, and at this one warehouse, he takes one person out, but it was really like a undercover FBI or cop.
It was an undercover FBI.
Yeah, undercover agent who's taken out, and he was also the husband to Julie Benz and a father. Well, Punisher Frank Castle, he's feeling remorse about this, and he wants to hang it up or at least leave town. He feels like his one man mission is cost. There's casualties. He's starting to realize that there's casualties. It's kind of like old man Logan or old man Batman, if you will. He's kind of like all this darkness I do. Yes, I am taking out criminals, but another one steps up to take their place. And there's good people who are dying. That's kind of like, that's where he's almost at. Like, this is
Was it the
and he
collateral
finds,
damage when Wayne Knight made that comment about collateral damage? He's like, "Oh,
yeah,
Frank, like you." He says, "Frank, like there's always collateral damage." That's when Frank, like you almost see like Frank more human, and
yep,
he adopts like that, like there doesn't need to be collateral damage,
and
like
and and the little girl who her father was killed by Frank in the beginning of the film, she actually starts bonding with him.
Mhm.
And Frank wants to, Frank is, he's very like, this is unlike the Dolph Lundgren Punisher, which is all
Thomas
about the
Jane.
mission and didn't care about people. You know, this is like, I would say this is slightly akin to Thomas Jane, but Thomas Jane's Punisher
He lost
had,
that.
had a wall up where he wasn't trying to be friendly or chummy with his neighbors. Some of them got through to him, but he still distanced himself. This Frank, he's actually like, he's like, he wants to do everything he can to protect them. Like, he's trying to give them money. He's trying to offer them protection any way he possibly can. And to me, that was, this is a Punisher you're not likely going to see that often, but it's still good to see it. It's like Rambo when you see Stallone is all, he wants to lead, he wants to have a quiet life. He just wants to live. He wants to exist without any more harm or pain. But also he realizes that sometimes you have to fight evil with evil.
And I
You
agree
know
with you. I think Gil said a lot of what a lot of people when they saw this movie, it was they had that Thomas
that
Jane was still
that
fresh in
that,
their mind.
that image. You see the Punisher skull. You see him all geared up. You're like, oh, like the Thomas Jane one, like that Punisher. Like, oh, that was a great, that was a great fun film. This one, they cheaped out on special effects, or even Jigsaw. We get Jigsaw in here, and even his makeup looks friggin' terrible. I've seen
It
Halloween
didn't make
makeup look
sense.
better than
Like,
that.
how did you get so super strong from like having metal plates in your face? Like, I get that they needed to make a Punisher villain.
Well, I think they're trying to go kind of a Dark Man route where his nerves were,
Yeah,
you
because
know,
he had no feeling in
severed.
his face and the skull, And again, I get all that, but it's like I feel there was a lot they left on the table that they could have done differently with this film, and in a lot of ways, I get why it's a failure. I mean, DVD sales were decent because again, you were at a
Yeah.
lull. We weren't at the time of Iron Man just yet.
And
Iron Man
also,
was
we
coming.
weren't at full blown streaming services.
Exactly. Netflix was still you got your DVDs in the mail.
I mean, the best you had was like Netflix doing that or Redbox. That was the only thing
I know
comparable, really.
we had Blockbuster on the way out,
Yep.
so we had a lot. We still have family owned DVD places,
Family Video.
Family Video, Great American Video, things like that. So, do I feel bad for this movie? Yes, because it
It had
suffers.
potential.
It had high potential, and I think this is what set the tone to bring about a Punisher that was the perfect balance between Thomas Jane and Ray Stevenson, which was Bernthal's. Bernthal's Punisher to me is the dad that saw his daughter die, his wife get killed by the mob. He knows he has no filter, no limit. He'll push himself and his body to the limit, and people saw that in every season of that he was on the show. And in yeah, granted, was the third season was
I
season two
would
a little bit
say
bad? Yeah, it was because
I would say
the girl
I would say
character.
Barenthal's Punisher
Yeah, Bernthal's Punisher was
is,
the one and two.
well, no, I was gonna say Barenthal's Punisher, I would say, is if you took Batman and Rambo, mashed them into one, because it's all about the mission.
Yeah, but he's still
Batman's all about the mission.
because they gave him a heart though with that girl in the second season. Remember the girl that he meets the
Yes.
and he also kind of you see him also take under the oh god what's her name? Give me a second. I gotta find her name because it's escaping me.
Well, I mean, we had Karen from Daredevil pop up in there as a love interest, basically.
Give me 1 second because Deborah Ann Wall. Deborah Ann Wall was
Yeah, Karen.
yeah
I said
Karen.
Karen.
She wasn't a
See?
love. I don't think she was a love interest for Punisher. She
No,
was the love interest. She was Matt's love interest. And
Yeah, but she started to have a little connection for Frank, even though Frank
more like
might not have
Stockholm
felt it.
syndrome, I think that was, than anything
Yeah.
else.
Oh, yeah. It's like what's her name? Who was the ER nurse? She was kind of like she
Oh,
hooks up with Luke. She hooks up
Ashoka.
with
I can't ever remember her name. Ashoka, who's gonna play Ashoka Tano.
yeah. I know who you're talking about.
So yeah, like Deborah Ann Woll did a great job. And for those of you that watch Critical Role or any of those other, or used to watch Critical Role, she is a
True
huge safety
Blood.
nerd. Her husband is actually blind in real life,
Hmm.
and she helped train Charlie Cox in a lot of the understanding of how to be a blind man. So there's a lot of cool things that she did on set. She also is not being brought back for the new Daredevil series, which a lot of people are
Nope.
pissed off about.
Neither is Froggy, I believe, or
Neither is
Foggy.
Foggy, yeah. So they're recasting both of them, which I think is a very piss poor decision on Netflix, or not Netflix, on Disney Plus's part. But that's besides the point. Um, this is one of those movies you will not see pop up on Disney Plus. I think it was
Yeah,
one of
think.
those. If he was alive today, I think you would have seen him in the Deadpool movie because I think he would fit in perfect in a Deadpool universe to be that weird hybrid of a good guy, bad guy. Um, but overall, the movie it falls on so many levels. Like you don't really get a good villain. You get uh you
A
get
little
Jigsaw.
bit of a little bit hot take. I think Kick Ass 2 is probably a better
Oh
action
yeah.
movie than this.
Well, Kick Ass 1 is a way better movie than
Yeah.
this. I mean, and that's another comic book movie too, which I love. So again, this movie, and I hate that we left it as like I say it's a slide down because there are people that love this movie. I've run into comic book fans that are
Well, I
diehard
mean,
Punisher fans that say this is like one of the best
all
movies, and I'm like,
your
it could
your
be.
own stats speak for it. I mean, 35 million to make it, and he only made 10.1 million.
And folks, this isn't okay. Look at
And the
what was going
shortest
on in
movie tonight
2008.
too.
So
1 hour, 103 minutes. Shortest movie tonight.
no, shortest movie was Elektra '97.
Sure. Oh, okay.
So look at statistically how there was nothing in the world what was going on at the time. We had a presidential change. Barack Obama was being voted into office. That was it. No major financial. We didn't have the housing. We were dealing with stuff in Iraq and Afghanistan. So this is kind of like a knock to because he was a special forces trainer. That's what they claimed him to be as his job. Um, but that's what you had going on in the world. So financially, there was no reason why a movie like this couldn't have been successful with a low budget. But it did had a really piss poor marketing. It was under the Marvel umbrella, which again, remember, Disney has not. We have not gone into the MCU yet. We are creeping into the MCU after this because this is when we get Iron Man 1. So this was like the final, and I say this very honestly, this is the final film of the beta before you get the MCU that we now know, which Dave and I were talking about that the other day. Me and Steven were talking about that. Hey Archer, on the show, which is sets the precedent for comic book movies in the present era. I mean, these movies, barring Blade, these movies are you could all pass on. Would I tell you to? No, I think for any true comic book fan, you should watch them. Give it a shot. It's our opinions are just that. They're our opinions, But a lot of you guys do value what we like. We actually got a compliment last week that we inspired someone to watch a movie based off of what our review was. So that to me is a sign that Dave and I have a really good level of knowledge in what we're bringing to the table.
We have power.
We
No, I'm
do have
kidding.
power. We let it.
Hey,
I have
Ricardo.
limited power. You know, but yeah, like
Limited rice pudding, etc., etc. Hey, Ricardo. I hope Ricardo's doing well tonight. He just popped in the chat.
hey Ricardo, it's good to see you, brother.
And by the way, guys, if you want to catch some of our past episodes, well, of course, you can always check us out on YouTube here at the Outer Dimensions Podcast. And as always, wherever you get your podcasts from, Spotify, iTunes, we're all over the place now, guys. Just look us up at the Outer Dimensions Podcast, and you can check out all of well, we don't have episode 11 up yet, but we have our first 10 episodes that you guys can go ahead and check out.
And I know that you guys have been starting to love us a lot more, and we're seeing a lot of activity in the chat, which makes both of us very happy. So if you guys keep this up, like I said, we are seriously thinking about doing a if we get like a lot of people in the chat and we get a lot more activity, I'll be helping Dave upload these every week. So if you
Yes.
guys see that, just let us know.
And possibly shave his eyebrows.
Oh, I'm never shaving my eyebrows.
Yeah, sure. Come on.
You should
You-
know.
we
Has anyone
I'm
seen?
sure your wife would love that. No eyebrows, shave all the hairs. You'd be dolphin smooth,
Oh no, she'd laugh. She'd make fun of me. My wife would roast me. Has anyone seen the
like a marshmallow.
super? Okay, I'm kind of curious what you mean by that, Gilster. Is that
There,
Super Seven or
no.
Super?
There is a sci-fi or there's a superhero comedy that James Gunn made. I think I've seen it advertised. I might have been on Netflix very briefly. I'm not sure. I have to look it up. But he's made a few superhero uh comedies. I mean, well, just look at Peacemaker. Peacemaker was a friggin' laugh riot, and now a
Uh,
superhero.
Peacemaker is a full-on masterclass in how to take a non-known, an unknown superhero and turn him into an icon. That's a masterclass because that show is hilarious. Love me Peacemaker. Love John Cena love him in that role. It's called Super. I'll have to check that out. But again, when we look at superhero movies, and we won't touch the MCU, there's reasons, and I'll give you the reason. Hey Archer put out on his channel, Nerd Affiliated. That crew is amazing. If you guys haven't subbed to their
Yeah,
channel,
apparently it's a 2010 film, written and directed by James Gunn, starring Rainn Wilson, Elliot Page, Liv Tyler, Kevin Bacon, Nathan Fillion, of course,
I
Greg
have that
Henry,
movie.
Michael Rooker, Andre Royo, Sean Gunn, of course.
Linda Cardinelli.
Yeah,
Wow.
dude,
All right, I need to watch this.
you can't say her name around me, okay? I'm trying to trying to be a good Dave here. One of my celeb crushes.
Oh, she is.
Just saying.
Wait, Ricardo, you haven't been able to watch Peacemaker yet, my dude. It's on Blu-ray. Buy it, dude. If you can't, unless you got financial troubles, then don't buy it. But if you can get it, if you have Max, it's on.
Or you know what? Binge it on the weekend. Just sign up for like the free trial and then cancel
Yeah,
the trial when you're done.
yeah. They do like the 2-day trials. I know Max.
Not that I do anything like that,
But we
which I
do.
do.
My wife does it. She just finished up an Amazon trial. She's gonna do it again because we just changed the emails. But yeah, like if you haven't been able to, dude, hit us up. We'll give you some tips and tricks on how to make it work. Um, but the reason, and I'm going to bring it back here, Nerd Affiliated put a challenge out to YouTubers to not do any of the major Hollywood movies. Now, Iron Man, it is on Max, yes, but I can help you, Ricardo. Message me on Instagram. Message me on Instagram, and I'll help you out because I have a hookup. So don't worry about that. I can help you.
He'll hook you up like a tow trap.
Hey, Dave knows Dave knows I got my ways. Um, we don't want to review because of what's going on currently in Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
and with that, I'm not supporting the studios. I want to support the actors, the writers,
I
the
mean, well,
food
we can
handlers.
discuss MCU before anything that's been out.
So yeah,
We'll
so
say
like if you guys want us to the
up to
line
Secret
cutoff.
Invasion. I think is a safe way to say up to that point, but
Wait.
that's
We have
not
to pick
really.
a movie. If I have to pick a movie that would stop us from discussing the MCU, Guardians 3, because Guardians 3 came out this year. So anything that's pre Guardians 3, like Guardians 3, Ant-Man, we wouldn't talk about because they're this year. But everything else,
Thor: Love and Thunder, I would never talk about ever.
yes, everything else we can talk about. So you might see an MCU where we pick like I think Dave and I would, if we were to kind of pick to title it, what you would call it, we could do a like best of MCU, like pick the top 5 best movies and talk about them. and do like the worst 5 movies of the MCU, because there is that level of bad good.
You know what the worst 5 movies of the MCU are?
Eternals.
Eternals.
E3, I know when you watch this, you probably, if you left to go do anything else, when you watched it again, that was a shout out to you. Eternals, and Eternals.
Listen, I still see Eternals on full price on shelves at like Walmart and Target once in a while, and I see them still at Ollie's. Nobody's buying them. I'm just saying.
Exactly. So Gilster says he wants us to do that. So
Ricardo, if you're watching it tonight on your phone, I will say Guardians 3, you will love it.
It's a great
all the way through, and there are end credit scenes to go, so check it out. That's all I'm going to say.
And if you have a heart, you will cry. If you have pets, if you are a pet parent, you will cry. It has that level of, it will touch your heartstrings. Dave and I talked about this. I cried in the theater, and my daughter teared up a little bit when we saw it. It's damn good movie. But when we're looking at my little one, you want to say hi? No? Okay. That's my 3-year-old. She just wanted to say no.
She's like, I don't want to mess with YouTube.
But yeah, like, so if you guys want us to do, like, we will do, I'll add that to our list, like a best of. Dave and I have talked about so many ideas, like
best of the best.
So we'll do the top 5, the best of, and the worst of MCU. Maybe
MCU simply the best. There you go.
We could do, well, I wouldn't mind doing the worst of. I wouldn't mind picking a couple of the bad movies, because there's some bad.
No, we'll do a separate episode for the worst.
Oh yeah, they're not gonna be in the same episode. It'll be two distinctly different episodes.
And we can do it like we did the Expendables.
Yeah, honestly, I would like to do it like that, because Dave and I have very different opinions on the movies, and I love certain movies a little bit more than I liked other ones. So,
and we all know I won the Expendable episode. I'm just saying.
No, you only won it because you did. I came up with the scenario, so I win the scenario. You may win the team, but I won the scenario.
Besides, I would want my team traveling the multiverse anyway, so that's just me.
That's true. Nah, dude, Ricardo, if you got to do it, bro, I understand. We respect you, man. We love that you come in.
No,
even support us briefly. We appreciate
no worries, Ricardo. He said that I'll try and catch up on some of your guys' stuff. I have. Listen, man, life first. You know, your life situation, your family situation comes first. You know, if our videos, our content's not going anywhere, you can catch up on us anytime, and it doesn't cost you a single thing. Okay.
Yeah, so that's what we're trying to tell you guys.
You first, man.
Yeah, we support you guys as much as you guys support us.
And Ricardo supports a lot of channels, and if you have stuff going on, take care of your stuff, man. We're not going anywhere.
Hey, we're friends, dude. You could always
unless Dre gets Thanos snapped again and he'll vanish, but then I'll bring him back. But
exactly.
Aside from that, we're not going anywhere.
Exactly. So, folks, I just want to kind of thank you guys for coming in and tuning into this episode this week. I think it was a fun one to do, even though I feel like Dave and I kind of knew we knew the avalanche of shit we were all walking into.
See, I was expecting Blade to be the last one, but Dre flipped it on us and made it first.
I had to flip this. He
served dessert first.
Yeah, I gave you the awesome dessert, and then we had the shit meal. That was the fall into this. Now we'll make it up to you guys next week, because next week we have something really awesome that we're doing, which is a mini. We're doing the best. Who is the best Spider-Man? Now, a lot of people have questioned me about this. Like, what is this about? Why are you doing this? Well,
because we want to.
One, we wanted to. It was something that Dave and I, it's a pet project of ours that we're working on. And this is part of a 4-part series. So we're doing the first episode you guys are going to see is who's the best Spider-Man. Now, the criteria, I already sent Dave. Dave already has the cheat sheet for this. The criteria is the amount of films the person's been in, the age they started the role as Peter.
But
they were Peter Parker in the film.
They have to be live action too.
And they have to be live action. No voice actors. No
animated 90s series Peter Parker Spider-Man. No Spider-Verse, unfortunately.
Spider-Verse.
Video games do not count as live action. So the video games are out the window as well. And we're gonna discuss, basically who, as far as this, because let's face it, the actor is Peter Parker, but the actor is also Spider-Man. I mean, one of the biggest examples of that was like Tobey Maguire, very meek and mild, um, as Peter Parker, but then when he was Spider-Man, he could talk shit to J. Jonah Jameson like you wouldn't believe.
Oh yeah, he
So
smells.
I mean, it's going to come down to who is. Dave sent me a link on Instagram so I can slowly start watching stuff. Yeah, I will. Don't worry.
Yeah, we
We're
got
gonna.
you, brother. Now,
Yeah.
the final criteria to that, and that was more, again, this is the statistics in me. I went to look at the highest grossing film. Now, only 4 of these actors out of the 5 actually had full length in cinema movies. The 5th one, which is kind of a throw, is not a throwaway, did 2
Nicholas
years on
Hammond.
television, and we're gonna leave it at that. And it's not American, so right there, that should let you guys know
Okay. I know
where
which
we're
one
going.
you're referring to now.
So he only did TV for 2 years, which was awesome to find that out because he didn't get the opportunity to do a movie. And then I found out other things he's done, and I've seen it, and he's an actor who's been in several Sentai series since. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Now, if that wets your guys' whistle for what we have coming up, if you're a Spider-Man fan, which everybody knows I am, I'll be wearing my Spider-Man T-shirt next week, be in full regalia, ready to go because I'm excited. This is a great series, and I started working on the one that's the week after, which is Batman, and
Is a Batman.
wait to
Well,
see.
we all know it's Michael Keaton. So.
And we know it's Keaton, but again, that's where I crunched some numbers, and he technically, I want to say it was him and maybe Pattinson probably compete for the number of highest grossing films. Because just to give you guys a tidbit, Batman '89 grossed 100 something million box office.
But could
But
you
when you look at
could
it
you
now, it
could
was
you use inflation and tables to translate what that would be to
I
modern?
did, I did, and
Okay.
when Keaton grossed 1.15 billion now for his movie in '89.
Okay.
He is the highest grossing actor, and there's also a trend. It seems that Batman's age has stayed consistent. And they've all been either in their 70s before they passed, or if they're still alive, they all started the role in their late 30s. 38 years old has been the number.
Okay.
Just to give you guys a note, Peter Parker has been mid to late 20s,
Mm-hmm.
and the actors are now in their early 40s. So, just to give you guys
Most of them, anyways.
most of, I think, well, yeah, because
Holland
Shinji,
is like what 26, 27 maybe.
27, he just turned 27.
Okay.
Garfield's 39, Toby's 43, Hammond is 66,
Yeah, he's still alive.
and uh, Shinji is 71. So he's the oldest. But they all started 24 years old. So just to give you guys numbers. So, hey, look, it's showing up late, better late than never. Is Mr. Nerd affiliated? Ooh,
Hey, Hollywood.
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 So, yeah, we wanted to wet your whistle, give you guys a little bit of the taste of that. That's what we're gonna be doing.
Yes, he is.
So expect that, and then when we finish the series out, because it's gonna be Spider-Man's opening the series, and I think closing the series was Superman.
Possibly.
I think Superman was the one closing the series. I have to go back through my notes. No, you never lose points for being late. We love you, bro. The so A goes out to a B. Oh my goodness, we have to figure out Restream. We'll figure that out, folks, because I think it's me and Restream.
Well, you and I will do a test stream sometime before next week and see if we still have the same issue.
And if not, hopefully Restream will got my message tonight, and they'll see what the issue is, and we'll figure it out. But again, folks, be looking forward to that miniseries because once we hit September, it's going to be a lot more very specific style stuff we're doing again, and we're definitely taking your suggestions into place because that comic book one I may throw in. I do want to do something for Hispanic Heritage Month, which is starting up soon, so we may be doing something for that.
I'm also going to throw this suggestion out. We can do best Jokers.
That's if you guys want to see it. I love. I mean, there hasn't been that many. Cesar Romero, Nicholson, Ledger, Leto, Joaquin Phoenix.
I haven't seen that one. Sorry,
And
I don't consider him a Joker. I'm sorry.
He is. It's as much as you don't want to. He is. And in the first one, the movie was good. I liked it. It's a good, but it's not a comic book movie. It's a psychological film. You're analyzing the way the mind handles trauma.
Like I said, I haven't seen the movie, so
if you guys are interested, let us know what you would like. We said we don't put out the titles in advance, but we like to give you guys a taste when you watch the series, like the episodes.
Yes, sir.
For those of y'all listening to the podcast, be excited because Spider-Man's next week, and we're going to be super highly animated because that's one of my favorite superheroes. And Batman, obviously, is one of this channel's.
Well, I'm sorry, I have to disagree with you. I'm not going to be animated. I'm going to be live action.
Yeah, we're going to be live action, folks. So, I mean, Ledger is fantastic. I mean, hands down. But you can't forget Nicholson. You can't forget Cesar Romero, one of the first Latinos to ever be a villain on live action television.
Well, I love that one little stop motion commercial that they have going out where it's like all the Jokers except for
Leto.
Except for what's his name, Leto. Yeah.
Yeah, and Leto's a different kind of beast altogether. So again, folks, we thank you from us here. Look forward to what we're doing next week.
Yep.
We got a lot of stuff coming down the pipe for you guys, and like I said, me and Dave, we will let you know if we're gonna ever miss a week. We pretty much, like I said, we're booked through till, barring I think Thanksgiving and Christmas. I think there's only 2 days off that we have coming up. The rest of it is going to be Halloweenish. September is going to be we got some good stuff for you, and maybe
Gilster. I know who you are. You're Vincent D'Onofrio. You're saying Thor from Adventures in Babysitting, and then you're saying Kingpin in 2022. So I know who you're referring to.
Yes, I totally laugh at that because I got the reference and I didn't say anything, but I like it.
I couldn't resist. I had to acknowledge that.
We have to acknowledge you.
But guys, as always, it's our 2 hours is up. Sometimes we go over, sometimes we're under. But again, you can follow us on the Outer Dim Pod on Twitter, the Outer Dimensions Podcast on Instagram. You can email us at the Outer Dimensions Podcast at gmail.com. You can also find us on Spotify and other podcast platforms, wherever you get your podcasts from. And also, don't forget to check out the Collector's Safe Space. That is Dre's channel. And Dre, what do you have going on this week?
Let's see. This Friday, I'm trying to get to work with Sal of Nerd Affiliated. He and I are going to try to do a Q&A. Coming up next Thursday, I have an interview, live interview I'm going to be doing with a librarian who was nominated for an Eisner with one of my friends. So she's into the comic book world. So I have to actually go through her publicist. So I'm going through her publicist right now.
And that's something that's very interesting because Dre's been doing some interviews with people, educators who actually use comic books or comic book elements in their teaching. So that's very cool to see a nice, refreshing angle.
Yeah, so we're doing that next Thursday at 7 o'clock live on my channel on the Collector Safe Space. Monday I'll be having John Joker will be coming on the show.
The Hotfather himself.
Yeah, he's going to be doing a Collector Safe Space membership spotlight, and
awesome.
You guys see it's very. For those of you that don't know, I'm sorry, I try to pick it up so they don't lose the audio. For those of you that don't know, that's my attempt at taking the guys and the girls that are in our group, giving them a chance to get a spotlight, putting the light on them because that's what this is all about. Dave and I, this is our passion project, and I absolutely love doing this. We've been putting more eyes on this, which makes me very proud of what we do. And a lot of people are actually reaching out and being more interested. So big shout out
Now,
to my brother Dave for what he does because he helps make a lot of this. You guys don't realize the amount of work we put in to this besides our own channels. So that's what
and
I have
also,
next.
speaking of the collector safe space, we also have Dre has a Discord for the collector safe space. If you guys want to join, you can look it up on Discord. It's a place where you can share, your toy hunts, your collectibles with. If you're
Toy
looking to
photography.
share, if you're
Everything.
YouTube, if you're a content creator, you want to share your links. It's a great place to share links there. But also, collector safe space is also in the future, in case anyone's not aware. A collector safe space also does. It's basically also a mental health support group as well, where we will be hosting streams about mental health, not just men's mental health, but everyone's mental health. So please be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, we got
And
the date that's tentative right now. It's September 8th, which is a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to work with Dave's schedule because he's going to be co-hosting with me. Hey, folks, we just hit a milestone, 100 messages in the chat. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for that.
We love when you guys are active in our chat, so thank you. But yeah, that September 8th will be that mental health panel. I do have 3 other guests that are going to be on there with us. I think EC Collecting said he's going to try to jump on. LeBron Fett's going to try to jump on. And I'm working on a 3rd mystery one, which I haven't yet. I've contacted them, but I haven't heard back.
Well, and also we may be able to do that a little bit earlier in the day as well to help accommodate a few schedules as well.
We're trying to do it, and we, again, we're not licensed mental health professionals, but the collector safe space and nerd affiliate.
But you don't have to be to lend an ear to just listen to someone. Mental health doesn't just mean you're going to a clinic. Mental health is you're listening. Hey, you're checking in. Dre sent me a message earlier today. Hey, how's your day going? That's mental health support right there. Checking in on your friends. Just because just like with family or friends. Just because you don't have to wait until the holidays to say hello or to check in on them. Someone could be having the worst week ever and they get a message from 1 or 2 friends and, it brightens up their day, gets their mind off certain things. So that's what Collector Safe Space is pretty much about, whether, initially it was part of an initiative where, a lot of times with men, we're kind of grown up. We're kind of, as we grow up, we're kind of taught or we see examples of not really sharing your thoughts or feelings, not like keeping things bottled up. And that's not healthy. That could lead to high blood pressure, stress, and even worse situations. So it's about getting together, just discussing things on your mind. Hey, maybe something that brought you into collecting, or maybe use collecting as a form of therapy. Maybe toy collecting or just collecting or doing video game streams is something that you used to do with, playing video games with your brother, your sister, your cousin, and they're no longer here anymore. But still doing that kind of brings back those good positive memories of them, keeping them alive in your hearts and your minds. So, I mean, that's kind of the goal is you don't have to be a professional, Dre, me, and everyone else that's a part of it, we're good at listening. We're good at sharing, you don't have to, you could just sit there and listen. And then, you're like, wow, that's, I feel the same way at times. You're not alone. And we do often provide information on if you wanted to seek professional help.
Yeah, we do.
There are mental health websites and hotlines out there, even text messaging that you could do. If you're feeling down and you just feel you want to talk to someone, but maybe you don't want to talk to someone face to face, you can do it through text messaging. And there are plenty of organizations out there.
Dave and I met that way, and we've been brothers ever since.
Yes, sir.
Just to let you guys know, it's like this support group has actually become a friend circle, and everybody in the group, texts each other. I text Dave every day.
And what a lot of you guys may not realize, everyone who's been here in this stream tonight, well, you guys are a support group right there. Earlier, Rolando and a few others were sharing some links for GoFundMe to help out Vader's girl, aka Kat, with some medical bills that she has coming up. That's support right there. Saying hello to everyone. Ricardo, when you popped in, you were saying hello to Rolando and everyone else, saying hello to me. That's checking in on your friends. That's mental health support right there without even realizing it. You're saying hello to everyone. You're like, Ricardo, you're saying you want to catch up on our content, our videos. Well, that's a way to keep yourself busy, but it's also a way to help support your friends. You're supporting everyone. Everyone here in this chat, everyone who's listening to this podcast, it's support in one way or another. You might not be realizing it, but you're supporting me, you're supporting Dre, you're supporting each other, and we're supporting you, spending all this time together. We don't do this for money. The Restream the Restream platform, I am actually footing the bill on that myself. So we can kind of have a better presentation, but also so we can do a lot more, and we can stream on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and everywhere else. We want to reach as many people as possible. But, we're doing this because this is something we enjoy. We're just two guys talking about movies. We're not so-called experts or critics, but we're just giving our opinions and our takes on it.
Hey, listen, I laugh, dude. Ricardo, I am hilarious. Like I'm a joker, and I love it. So trust me, I was laughing. I was being more serious because my wife was walking by, and my little one was walking by. But
I ain't afraid of your wife.
Huh?
Oh, I ain't afraid of your wife.
I know you ain't afraid. I'm not afraid of Roxanne. I ain't afraid of her.
No, but you're afraid of your wife.
I'm afraid of my wife. Yes, I am.
Because she's right there.
But just so you guys understand, that's something that is a personal project of mine that I'm undertaking that was somebody else's, and I made a promise to several people that I would do it monthly. That was months ago, and I didn't do that, so now I'm upholding that promise.
Because he's a slacker.
Oh, I am. I'm not gonna lie, but please, who cares if you're talking, brother? Please, that's the whole point. You're supposed to do this. This is what the chat's supposed to be about.
Yes, sir.
And we want you guys to enjoy. You okay, little one, that you fell? Yeah, okay. So that's what we're here to do. We appreciate that you guys love us. We don't ask for your support in the sense of like financial. We ask you guys to just watch the content. If you guys know somebody that's interested in movie talk, share it with them. Trust me, there's a lot of people that watch podcasts at their job or listen to podcasts at their jobs while they're doing like number crunching. They enjoy it. Please do. We love it. We're not a high. We don't do high like a lot of the newer stuff. We can recommend you guys to like Nerd Affiliated. Go look. They're a great network, and they're similar to what we're doing. They want to see positivity.
Might be a few minutes late, but he's there.
Hey. Hollywood gets the Hollywood time. But yeah, we love you guys. We love what you guys do for the channel, and believe you me, it's Dave and I bust our ass to make sure these shows are good for a reason, because we like to give quality content to you guys.
And plus it burns calories.
Yes. So I'm gonna go get ready to get going because my little one's getting anxious.
Antsy. Yep.
And my wife has to go to bed because she's gonna be teaching tomorrow. So we want to thank you guys for coming tonight, and we love you, and keep watching our stuff. Look forward to seeing Spider-Man next week. And I guess, as Dave always tells me to tell you, watch your head on the way out of the portal, guys.
Guys, take care, and we'll catch you on the flip side.